Welcome to the Wonder Women's Collective podcast. I'm your host, Gracie Hins. Before we jump into today's episode, if you could leave us a review on Spotify or wherever else it is that you're listening. Today's episode is with Laura, aka Lauradoessports. She is a content creator and a cyclist and a filmmaker, and I'm so excited to bring you guys this episode. I kind of feel like we just banter about all fun things, life and content and ideas, and so it's a super fun episode, and I hope that you enjoy it. I love to start out the podcast just asking the question of who are you and what do you spend your time doing?
Oh my God, who am I? I'm Laura, often known as Lauradoessports. And oh God, I'm an interesting soul. I'm a creator, I guess. That feels kind of weird to say.
Mhm.
I literally made, I don't know if you watched my recent YouTube video, but
I
I
did,
did like
yes.
the start was like a reintroduction to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm reintroducing myself not as like a medic or a consultant. Now I'm like actually a creator. So I'm gonna own that. That's my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And what do I spend my time doing? Well, I guess the background for the listeners is that I recently left my corporate job. So my time has very much switched from meetings and consulting to pretty much cycling, filming, editing, traveling, logistics.
Mm-hmm.
Full time. I feel like most of my brain is occupied by like, I need to do this thing on this day, this thing on this day, and then trying to bring that all together and then put out content
Mm-hmm.
is kind of my life. So yeah, that's pretty much what I spend my time doing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm loving every second of it.
I feel like we should dive into a bit of the background of Laura Does Sports because
Yeah.
I feel like it's a fun story.
Have I told you this story?
Mm-hmm. But now I need it for
Oh,
the podcast. Everybody needs to know
okay.
the story.
My story. Where do I start the story? That's always the hard one. I guess like way back when, I always loved like sports as a kid, and I always loved making little like home movies and things. Then through high school, I decided to do science instead of doing media because my parents told me I was never going to get a job if I took media.
Right.
Continued some of my
Classic.
sports, but then yeah, went into medicine. And then I started doing powerlifting. So I started like documenting my little powerlifting journey on Instagram just for me because it was quite nice. Then I guess a few things happened. I left medical school, went into consulting, and then also went through this big breakup. And I decided to post content on my little powerlifting page about breakups. I posted one reel that had pictures of my ex-boyfriend in it. I don't know if you know that part. Basically, me saying that I had this breakup, I decided to move from powerlifting into like endurance, and it was like the best thing that ever happened to me. Now I'm doing all these cool things, blah 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 blah. Which was the cool things were I think I ran like 50K on a random day just for the lols. I was a bit delusional, and I'd done like random like cycling challenges and things. Anyway, posted this reel. It went super viral. My ex-boyfriend got very annoyed. But it
That's
gave me like 4,000
understandable.
followers overnight. And I think that kind of, I don't know, overnight I basically was like now I've got a platform. Like
Yeah.
this is a bit weird. And even though now I'm like 4,000 followers isn't that many, at the time it was so many. It's, oh my God, should I get verified? Like, what, people care what I think. Like people were like, oh my God, you're the girl that posted that video. And I felt so famous. um, but then I've always kind of wanted to do like content, like from being a kid. Like I love doing home movies and things and wanted to be a YouTuber ultimately. So I was like, okay, how am I gonna start doing this? I just started making little like Instagram reels and then kind of stayed at like 4,000 followers for a while. So this is a really long story. I'm really going on. Stayed at like
Oh,
4,000
this is
followers for a
perfect.
while and
Yeah.
then was not growing. I think my content was just a bit rogue. I think I was very much doing it for like myself.
Wait,
And I
because
think something that
this was like the Iron Man training and
not
kind of like,
even this was like
oh,
it
this was
was it was like I
before
was
that.
getting into endurance, but it was because of like this whole breakup and me like trying to find myself because I'd been in like a really long relationship and before that I'd been in another really long relationship. I'd actually been in relationships since I was like 15. And so I didn't really know how to be alone. And so I was just like channeling all my energy into doing like these endurance challenges. And I was kind of like documenting that a bit, but more doing like kind of creative like storytelling stuff around like breakups and it was a bit of an overshare. It was a bit vulnerable, but people seemed to enjoy it. well,
Mm.
the people that followed me enjoyed it. I didn't get any new followers because I think it was not very geared for the platform. Um, but then I kind of got over it. Signed up to an Ironman. Kind of documented that journey a little bit, but not particularly well. Like I was working full time in like consulting. That was like my main thing. Was just kind of doing this on the side. Ultimately, would love to be a creator, but didn't really know how to get there. And also like my content's not good enough for it to do well on the platform. Okay. Ironman time came round. My Ironman videos did really well, and I started getting a lot more followers. And I think at the same time started to realize like how to do content. So, oh, this is how you tell a story. Like this is how you do a hook. Like because I think I
Mm.
had videos that did well every so often. I like could spot patterns as to what was doing
Mm-hmm.
well. And then I think that was what six months ago. So I think I was on 4,000 followers like 6 months ago, maybe just over
Whoa.
6 months ago. Just before my Ironman. I think my Ironman was in October, and I had 5,000 followers. So what was that? Maybe 7 months ago.
That's kind of wild. Well, and did you have like
Yeah,
did you have like a schedule of like, okay, I'm posting like one
no,
a week? It was just like whenever I
just
feel like it.
random.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was more like into the whole like I wanted to do more like poetic stuff. Like
Yeah.
I've archived quite a bit of it because it was a bit rogue, but
A little
it was
too
like
poetic.
it had a message, but it was more like dramatic music, like
Yeah.
a story over like random clips, as opposed to like what does well on Instagram is more like authentic
Mm-hmm.
stuff that's a bit more personal, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. A bit more normal, I'd say. Um, yeah, so that was what 6 months, 6 months ago, and then started to realize what did well, and then this year I've kind of just figured it out a bit
Yeah.
and just really enjoyed like the process of creating content. And then I was like, you know what? I was at 10,000 followers, and I said I'm gonna just leave my job because I don't like my job and it's not fulfilling me. And ultimately, this is what I want to do. And I guess alongside that, I've been doing more like videography stuff. So I bought like a proper camera a year ago, just with the intention of I like cameras and I like filming things. So I just want to learn. Um, so yeah, I guess those two things, like the social media side and also the videography, I was like, I love both of those. And I'm just gonna take a bit of a leap of faith and see what happens, which was a month ago. And then I went on this content trip. It's literally like this 2 days after I left my job
Yeah, because
to
how long
go to
had
the
you
French
like
Alps.
planned out the content trip for? Like when you were like,
I
okay, I'm
suppose,
leaving my job. I need to have something that I'm like jumping right into immediately afterwards.
well, so my friend had asked me maybe like a month before, like, what are you doing at this date? And I was like, well, I could just have left my job by then. So I
Why
could do
not?
that for that date. And so
Yeah.
I handed in my like, I'm technically on sabbatical, but
Mm-hmm.
lol. Just um, so yeah, I could have left my job by then. So I basically arranged my sabbatical so that I could leave my job in time for this content trip.
Mm-hmm.
And then started the content trip, and then I got my bike stolen, and that went very viral. But to be fair, my career break episodes before that, basically I'm going to leave my job to do
Yeah.
like content and trying to be like a cycling sort of filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that went pretty viral too. So I think that series has just done really well, and now I'm at 25K followers, which
I was
is
gonna
kind of
say like the
crazy.
lead up of like just from like a storytelling side of things
Mm,
is really cool watching those videos because I feel like
yeah,
I saw those videos before like you had left your job and I was like, oh, this
yeah.
is sick because it's actually like leaving me on a hook of like, oh wait, like this
What's
is
gonna
about
happen?
to
Because I
happen.
don't know.
Which is really cool because I feel like, like you'll see that like down the line of like, oh wow, I just found this person, but it's like after they have like already done all of this
Mm,
stuff, or it's
yeah,
not told in that way as
yeah,
well. And so it was really cool because I feel like had you been doing like were there like four of them?
yeah. I
Like,
think
yeah,
I was on.
it's
I
like
think
a lot.
episode 5 was when I got my bike stolen. I think the first
Right.
episode was like I'm gonna leave, but I didn't really put much effort into it, and I was like, I
Yeah.
really screwed that up because that was supposed to be like a bam, I've
Hmm.
got one chance. So then the second one I made pretty good, basically me being like, should I stay in London and do like all of the cycling community stuff in London, or should I go and travel in a van? And like,
Hmm.
which one should I pick?
Hmm.
That one did really well. Then I think I did one about how I've got money, like how I've managed to save up my money, and then I did one about how I want to make money
Hmm.
as a creator. And then I was like, I don't know what I'm going to post next. And then my bike got stolen. I was like, great. I've got a story. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's something that I was doing a podcast with my friend a while ago, and his whole concept of the podcast was to talk to people who are still like figuring it out, because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes you'll get all these like really successful people on podcasts just by nature of people know who they are and like they've got an
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing to tell, and that's why you get them on the podcast. But actually, like, what is so much more interesting is like people who are still figuring it out, because that's way more relatable. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like you're in the middle, and then you can get them back on in a year's time, and then
Mm-hmm.
people are brought along that journey. And I think that's what people like about like social media, is that it's relatable and they feel brought along.
Well, and there's also
Mm.
just the reality too of like we're like even if it seems like you're established in your career, there's still an element of like I don't totally know what I'm doing. Or like,
Uh,
like what's the next 5 years gonna look like? And there's never that like I don't know, you can look at like, okay, here's me like 3 months ago and like, wow, like look at like I have so many more answers now. But then it just kind of
yeah,
launches you into that next like, what is the next thing? And like with you right now, like, do I do the van or do I do London?
yeah,
And it's like, those you'll look back in 3 months and be like, oh, now I have a
yeah,
little more figured out. But there's never just like an
yeah,
answer to it.
for sure. But I think you can also look back and be like, I've grown so much. Like,
Hmm.
and that's also a bit of a trait of like, I don't know, like you and like people that I kind of surround myself with, is like everyone is like trying to like better themselves or like do something cool, that you end up just being in a completely different place in 3 months' time
Hmm.
to where you were before. Whereas I think, I don't know, maybe people who are a bit more like happy with just being in like a sort of steady job, which is completely fine, won't like, I don't know, change their life that significantly in 3 months.
Well, that's
But I very much want to be around people who are going to like change their life within 3 months, because like that's so exciting and it makes time go so much slower. And I just think if you're filling your life with like more stuff, to me that is success,
No,
you know?
I totally agree. And like, how did you kind of like deal with that while you were in your job? Because like, I think that's something that I
Mm,
struggle with and like was actually a big reason that I even started the podcast in the first place was like,
yeah,
I was doing some like pretty long work stints where it was like 6 weeks at a time of just doing like sediment sampling on a boat all day, every day for 12 hours a day, which I had like, which is, I do enjoy the work. However,
yeah,
it for me, like, I love having these conversations of like, what are you thinking about?
yeah,
What are you doing? What are you building? What are you going towards? What do you
yeah,
enjoy spending your day with? And like, I love everybody that I work with, but especially like some of the consultants, it's like you're running into people that are like, actually, I don't want to be here right now. Like, I don't actually really like my
yeah,
job. And then it's just kind of this like complaining thing. And I was like, dang, like, I really
yeah,
need to like build in these conversations with people that are doing things that are cool and inspiring and like pushing me. So then I was like, well, I should probably start reaching out to people that are doing that. And if you can record it and share it
yeah,
with other people, then like that's even more cool.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I find it hard when like I had to do my job, but I wanted to be doing something else. I think
Hmm.
that's just so tricky because you just completely like tap out of
Hmm.
what you're doing. And I think once you find something that you're really passionate about, it makes you spending your time doing anything but that like really hard. I think that's ultimately
Yeah.
why I was like, I have to leave. It's not that I hated my job. I didn't actually hate my job. Like it was fine. It's just it doesn't make me excited. And it doesn't feel like I'm building something for myself. And I think that's what's really important to me. I think like I'm also probably like you, like an entrepreneurial, like creative person, that I just felt so stuck,
Hmm.
like being on someone else's schedule. And to be honest, doing things like felt completely pointless. Like, oh, let's have a leadership election. It's like,
Like, no, no,
for
we could
what?
be doing other
For this
things.
company that basically just is made up. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I think at the start, like I didn't feel like that because I hadn't found the kind of passion as much for content. Because I think also it was just a bit, I was figuring it out. Like I didn't
Hmm.
really know what I was doing. I wasn't posting that often. I didn't really know how to make like good content. I was just kind of posting little like snippets of reels and things like that.
Hmm.
So I think back then it was kind of easier because I still derived a lot of my purpose from like my job, which I did enjoy back then. But I think it was more of a pulling force of like as soon as I found something that I really loved and I actually was getting good at it and just want to spend all my time doing it, I was like, I'm drawn towards this, and therefore I don't want to be spending my time doing anything else.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah,
Well,
I
and because
left.
you had thought about going like the full medical path at one point, right?
Yeah, way back when. Well, let's say it was that was yeah. I think I'm just a serial quitter to be honest. Like, well, I mean that was my plan. So I did 4 years of med school, Um, I basically my degree was like two separate parts. So we did like 3 years of undergrad, like science stuff, and then it was 3 years of clinical. Um, and I got to the three. I really enjoyed undergrad. Like I absolutely loved it. Like I actually love using my brain, which
Mm-hmm.
sounds. I love like maths and like analytics, and I think it's kind of something that I do miss about like consulting, but I still would never go back. Um, so yeah, I enjoyed undergrad, but then I started doing clinical school, and I was just I don't know, like the NHS in the UK is just not, and I was in these random little hospitals in the middle of nowhere,
Oh,
and I
so you were
thought
in the hospitals for a
yeah,
bit
so
too.
like
Okay.
so the second 3 years are like all clinical, so you get shipped off, you go on placement, so like
Right.
you go to these little like regional hospitals and you sort of shadow, you
Mm-hmm.
learn like on the job, you do like yeah, teaching and stuff like that. And I just was like, well, there were so many things. I think the environment was one of them. I think the second one was that I felt like a bit of a flow chart, which sounds kind of weird. But with medicine, it's like, okay, someone comes in with this problem, and then it's like, if they have this, do this. If they have this, do this. And it's like you just
Mm-hmm.
memorize all this stuff, and then you can then deal with the problem. And it's you just felt I felt like a cog, and I felt like I had no like autonomy. Um, and I think I would have loved the job in like 20 years' time if I was a kind of expert in my field and I was doing like women's health or something, which was what I was like super passionate about. But I thought the
Yeah.
plan to get there, like, is 20 years of being paid fuck all. Sorry, can I
Yeah.
swear on this? Being paid
Yeah.
F all, being paid nothing, working night shifts, working weekends, like sacrificing my physical health, probably my mental health. Is it worth that job? Probably not. So I had a massive identity crisis basically. And then yeah, got a job in London in strategy consulting, which was basically what all my friends were doing who didn't know what to do with their lives.
Right.
Because it's a
Yeah.
very good way to just get into corporate, get paid
Yeah.
some good money, and then figure it out later, which
Mm-hmm.
served its purpose, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do think like consulting was good.
Well, it's
I
funny
learned a
too, because
lot.
like, but everything that you're saying with like the medical stuff too, like, I mean, that's where
Yeah,
my brain was of like, I got my undergrad in dietetics and I was like, I'm gonna be a dietitian. But
yeah,
honestly, like, I was always looking at that like 20-year plan in a way of like, whenever people were like, oh, so like you're super excited about like being a dietitian and like working in a hospital, and do you want to work with
yeah,
diabetes? Do you want to work with heart attacks? Like just like all of those kinds of questions. I was like, yeah, like I understand that's a part of the process, but like really what I want to do is like I'd actually love to open like my own practice and just be able to like see people one-on-one and work with like, like the
yeah,
microbiome and more of like the IBS stuff. But it's like you can't
yeah,
just really jump from okay, I have
mm,
my RDN credentials to like, okay, I'm gonna now have my own practice. And
yeah,
like, that was one of those things too, where it was like, I finished my master's and then I was like, okay, so the next logical step with that is to do a 9-month internship, which is like a
yeah,
9-month unpaid internship doing like rotations. And I was like, I don't really want to go 9 months unpaid. Quite honestly, I
yeah.
can't go 9 months unpaid. Like, I was
Not
like, I just paid
possible.
my master's degree, like, still have to deal
Wow,
with
yeah.
that. To then like jumping into 9 months of unpaid internship, to then
Mm,
like telling people that they should probably just eat more vegetables. And like, I think that was the other piece of
can
it
have
too,
that
where it's
one for
like,
free.
yeah, I'm just like, I want to work with people that want to also change their lives,
Yeah,
Where it's like if
no, I
you're
get that a lot.
in like there's a lot of those spots like I think in medicine where it's like you're kind of just forced to deal with people that like don't want to make those changes, which doesn't make it
Yeah,
very fun.
yeah,
And then also just like even like the creative side of it too. It's like I don't think that there's a world in which like any
mm,
foods should be like demonized. And it's like food is so fun for me too. And so like
yeah,
kind of like putting it in that world of like almost like too scientific or like flowchart where it's like, okay,
yeah,
if you're having kidney issues, you do this. If it's this kind of
yeah.
kidney issue, you do this. If it's
Just
like,
not very creative.
it's not very creative. And like, everybody's also so different too. And so, I don't
Mm,
know. Yeah, it was definitely interesting when I was like, okay, but that's not, I like the 20-year plan. I really don't like the 10-year plan.
yeah, yeah. That was a really big realization for me. I was like, oh God, like I don't want to do this. But like,
Yeah, yeah. The day-to-day just is not as incentivizing as I thought it could have been. But that's okay. There's
yeah.
people that love it. And I think I'm
I
for
think it's
them.
also just like, I don't know, like it's almost like now I feel like I'm existing in this like other world that is not bound by all of these restrictions. Like it's like you were saying before about you've got to do an internship and then you've got to do all these things before you can open your own practice. And it's the same in medicine. Like you've got to go through
Yeah.
your training and then you've got to go through your like specialty training and then you so many years you can become a consultant. It's all very like bound by time. And it's the same in like corporate. There is a bit of meritocracy, but like for all intents and purposes, you've got to be there for a certain period of time in order to get a certain salary, to have certain responsibilities. And I just think like that world is not very me. And I think you can actually make like so much more progress by just existing outside of that and like
Mhm.
forging your kind of own path because you can make connections with CEOs. Like you can go and like speak to all these like people that you're doing with like all of your networking.
Kind of a
Like,
wild realization, actually. Like, you
yeah,
can email anyone.
anyone. Yeah.
As long as
They
you
might
can
not
find,
reply,
they might not
but
respond,
you can give
but
it a
as long
go.
as you find their email, you can email them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like actually I could probably do the job of people a lot more senior than me in my company, but because I haven't been there long enough, I can't do it.
Right.
It's not that I lack the skill set, it's that I lack the tenure. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's great about existing outside of it is that I have all of these skills and I can go and like pitch that to people. And
Hmm.
it doesn't matter that I'm only 25. It doesn't matter that I don't have
Hmm.
so many like, years of experience. Like I can provide you value
Hmm.
and we should work together. Like I just think that is it's so much more fun. It's so much more scary, but like I just think you can make so much more progress. I think that's why like entrepreneurs will just do better. Like your like ceiling of like
It's
income
endless.
in
Yeah. There is
yeah,
no ceiling, kind of.
there's no
Yeah.
ceiling. Whereas like in corporate in medicine, like that you're trading your time for money mostly.
Hmm.
Whereas when you're kind of on your own, you're not trading your time in the same way because you
Hmm.
can charge what you want.
Yeah, it's
That was
true.
really deep and philosophical.
No, but it's, I mean, I feel like it's so true. And that's what, like, I totally see too. But
Mm,
it also is not easy to figure out, A, what you're doing, what you want to do. And that's always a
no,
progress. Well, and like,
no,
how
I
do you
think
feel
I,
like friendships, like, how are people like around you? And I know that, like, obviously
ooh,
you have, or you are surrounding yourself, like, with so many people that are kind of like in the same realm, but
yeah,
also like friends that you've had since like university or before that. And it's just like, kind of like, how do those conversations go? Because I feel like that's something that like I sometimes have a hard time with of like, if I'm talking with
mm,
like a high school friend and they're like, so like, what are you doing? And I'm like, ooh, great question. And then I'll like be like, I
yeah,
was just like on the East Coast or I was in Europe trying to do something. And then people are like,
yeah.
oh, cool. And then that's where the conversation ends.
I think it's tricky because I
Mhm.
think like it's not that I've like fallen out with any of my friends. All my friends are like super supportive, but I think it's like my friends from like say uni like I struggle to relate to them in the same way,
Mhm.
or more they struggle to relate to me. Like I think I can kind of relate to like their situations, but I think we just like have a quite fundamental difference like in how like not see the world but just like you know what I mean, like I just feel
Yeah.
like I'm operating on this like in this different world to like my friends, and so I find that quite difficult because I think naturally when you like meet up with people it's like you chat about like work and you chat about like the things you did at the weekend, and I just find that I've become quite like unrelatable to people. And so I think I've
Yeah.
just started to surround myself with other people who think that way. And that's nothing to, like against any of my other friends. Like I love all of my friends. It's more that I struggle to then like, find that kind of middle ground. Um, so yeah, I think I've started surrounding myself with like a lot of creators or also people that, for example, don't know where they're living next week. Like it's literally in a coffee shop earlier. One of them thinks he's going to lose his job tomorrow, but has because he's works for a startup and they haven't managed to raise funding.
Uh-huh.
The other one has handed in the notice to her flat but can't find another flat. And so she's like, where am I going to live? And then the other guy has just quit his job, the guy I went bike packing with.
Hmm.
Um, and he's like, oh, I don't really know like what I should do next, or should I? I'm going to Ireland to do this thing, cool. And it's all just like, all over the place. I just
Hmm.
kind of surrounded myself with those types of people. But I think I guess it's also challenging surrounding yourself with people in content specifically, like within social media, because there's this like element of comparison that makes it quite tricky. And I
Mm.
think sometimes I need to like sometimes remind some of like my creative friends that we're like a team and that if I do well, you do well, then you do well, I do well, and like helping each other because it's so hard when you're looking at like stats all the time and
That
how
is,
oh
yeah,
my
that
video
is
did
a
better
really
than their
interesting
video.
conversation. But I mean, like, you're also like that is the beauty of it, where it's like people are following you for you. And like that
Yeah.
was almost a funny comment that you said earlier too, of like it's like you almost have to become unrelatable to like maybe like friends, but then you're also
Mm.
make creating like the most relatable content, which is like like in like a weird way. It's
It's
like where
actually really, yeah. I
it's like
get
you
what you mean.
have to
That is
become
weird.
unrelatable so that then you can be relatable because it takes so much time to like make what you're making. But I don't know, I'm like
Yeah,
that's a weird dichotomy to think about.
it is
I don't know what to
true.
do with that one.
But
But
yeah, I think it's more just the process of making like content. You've kind of got to be in a certain like, I don't know, chaotic or like maybe you don't, maybe it's just my content. Like I think specifically my content that I'm just a bit all over the place and that's what I make content about.
right. But then I feel like it's so relatable because so many of us are like these all over like I'm trying to like I'm thinking of like when I was at university, like I would have weeks where it would be Friday and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like I haven't done anything all week. I literally need to do something so chaotic that I just like feel like I'm balanced again." Where it's like you have
That's just you. Joking.
Or I'd be like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go drive 8 hours and then go do like a 20-mile run or something like that just to like, get
What?
the wiggles out. Um,
I love this.
but then you see
This is
your
great.
content and you're like, oh wow, yeah, no, I'm not alone in this. We all want to do
That's
slightly
so
chaotic
interesting.
things. And so it feeds to this like one element of a lot of people's lives that like I think so many
I think
people
that's true.
don't have the
I think
time
it's
to
I think
put
that's it.
all the energy into it. But like we all have that like in us to
Yeah,
some extent.
I
Yeah.
think that's true. I think I probably, I don't know, didn't used to do that chaotic stuff, but I can see why it is relatable to people because they want to
Yeah.
do chaotic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay,
But
well
yeah,
then how did you
I
get
just,
into starting to do chaotic stuff if you didn't used to do chaotic things? What was
oh,
the trigger?
what was the trick? I'm trying to think, did I do anything chaotic when I was younger? Not really. I think I've always been a person who will like just like put their mind to something and do it. Like I was into
Yeah.
sports and stuff and as a kid and like also with like medicine. I didn't go to a very good school, but I was like, I need to like do really well in like my exams so that I can like go to a good university. And that was like a great decision from younger Laura at the time.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that sort of, I don't know, desire to just like do things on my own and like be quite, what's the word like headstrong,
Yeah.
has then like translated then into like other parts of my life. I think the first time I did something slightly like chaotic, which wasn't really chaotic, but after my like first like longish relationship ended at first year of university, I was like, I'm gonna go solo traveling around Europe on my own, and my parents were like, "No, you're not. There's no way you're going on your own." And I'd like saved up £1,000 of my student loan, bearing in mind we get £4,000 for the entire
Hmm.
year, which is looking back is absolutely mad because I spent that like in a month. It's like, how
Hmm.
did I live? Um,
Hmm.
so I saved up like £1,000 of my student loan. I was like, I'm gonna go around Europe on my own. I bought like an Interrail pass and I just left. And then my parents like, you're so annoyed at me. But then they obviously came round. And I remember being on the plane. I was on the plane to Venice and I was absolutely terrified. Like I was what, 19? I was
Hmm.
so scared. And then I think my heart was just racing like the entire time that I was there. I was like, oh my God, someone's gonna steal something from me, like just so on edge. And then I remember like I think halfway through the trip I was on a train to Germany. And I just remember crying because I was like, I feel so alone. Like I haven't made any friends. Like this travel trip's supposed to be about like making friends and I just oh I want to
Hmm.
go home. And then
Hmm.
I ended up meeting someone that I'd met in a previous place. And then we ended up like linking up and I made all these great friends. And it was like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I stayed because I've like, made all these friends and we just did loads of like chaotic stuff and we just like went out everywhere and my battery's low on these hopes, right? Anyway, so that was the first proper thing that I think I did that was like a bit not really chaotic, but it was very
No,
much like
I think
out of my
headstrong is
comfort zone.
it's the right
Yeah.
word to be using because I feel like it's just like it's sheer determination as well. Like once you get an idea
Yeah.
in your head, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I think so.
Hmm.
Maybe it's just like a bit too much self-belief, which is also really weird because then I like also like struggled with anxiety so much as a kid because I didn't
Hmm.
have enough like confidence. I don't really know how those things coexist, but they do. Um, so yeah, I think that was the best thing. And then I think throughout like my next relationship, didn't really do anything that's chaotic. And then after that ended, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go and do hard things. I think it was probably, I think those two things actually do coexist because I had a really bad time with like my mental health during that end of that relationship. That I knew that doing things out of my comfort zone and like pushing myself to just do random shit was going to really
Mm-hmm.
help, and it did. So like
Mm-hmm.
I first like I went to these like run clubs completely on my own, which is when like the London running scene was popping off. I was really scared like going to them, but I was like, I'm gonna go on my own. I'm gonna like talk to people, and it's gonna be good. And then I would like do these like fitness challenges, and I think like the fitness challenges were sort of my way of like getting out of that, and then being like, yeah, I can do hard stuff, I can do chaotic stuff, and then I think it just sort of snowballed from there. But then now I just think I can do anything I set my mind to
It's
within
scary how that
within
works.
reason.
Yeah, I know.
Like
I
now, like going
know.
to Europe traveling would not
Yeah.
faze me in the slightest, and I'm sure that's part of just growing up, right?
Hmm.
Like you just get more like I guess confidence, and or maybe there are people who are my age that would be scared to go traveling in Europe on their own. I don't know. But it's just mad how much your comfort zone like expands. That's my
I think
tattoo as well.
it's the
I've got a
building blocks. Wait, what is it?
this is like me. I don't really know. I actually drew it in my journal like a few years ago when I was just having a really hard time with like anxiety and like going out my comfort zone. And then I redrew it like a year later for some reason. Like I just doodle in my journal quite a lot.
Mhm.
And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get a tattoo. So it kind of represents like me expanding my comfort zone.
I like it. Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Hmm.
Was that answer your original question? Why did I start
I
doing
think
chaotic
so.
stuff?
Yeah,
That
no,
was probably it.
it definitely does. But I mean, I think it's just like it's the building, it's the block, like it's the brick, right? Like when you're
Yeah.
laying a foundation, I think it's like you do make those decisions of like, oh, I'm gonna go solo travel, and like it's absolutely terrifying. Like I can
Yeah.
see how like now just like those little decisions built the house and like built the bricks and foundation for like, oh yeah, like I can go to Spain by myself and like meet people and interact and like it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's gonna be tough things and like I think even, you know, dealing with like the hard parts of that too, it helps like
Mm.
build up the callus a bit of like, oh yeah, I know I can deal with hard things. You know, if I have a crappy day,
Yeah.
like, that's fine. That happens. We'll move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah,
Same
for
power
sure.
outage happens and like it'll be fine.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I always just wonder, like, because like there's a lot of people that I know that like haven't done these types of things, like taking a bus or whatever and just going to like some random place
Yeah.
or like dealing with these types of situations. I'm like, do they struggle with this stuff? Or like, are they impacted? Or like, are they any
Yeah.
different? Or is it just like you kind of like get older and you're like, well, we
I
can do
don't
it.
know. I wonder about
I
that
don't know.
too. And I think like there is I feel like it's like people will be more comfortable in like whatever, I don't know. I'm like, you know, like you said, headstrong. I'm super
Mm,
headstrong. If I
yeah.
get something in my head, I'm gonna do it no matter what,
Yeah.
even if it ends up being a horrible decision. And I kind of have to just do it, even though, and like if it
Yeah.
ends up backfiring, I'm like, okay, that's great. I made that decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think that's where like the personalities of everybody like
Mm,
interact where it's like, okay, maybe there's more people like us where it's like, okay, cool, we've done it. We know the good, like the good parts. And then maybe we have a trip and then people who wouldn't just go and do it on their own join the trip and can experience it
yeah.
in a slightly different way, but like get
Yeah.
that. And I don't know. Those are just thoughts.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I
Yeah,
just wonder about it. But now I'm thinking about it. I do know people that I think would like struggle to like do things on their own
definitely.
now that I'm thinking about it. So maybe it was good training. So, so we're getting this like random. The one thing when you were talking about going to this random place to do a trail run is I remember being in Florence and I had like 2 or 3 days there. I think it was like the second place that I went on my like 18-year-old, 19-year-old little solo
Mhm.
traveling trip. And I'd explored all of the city and I was like, well, where else am I going to go? And I literally just like, I don't know why I did this. I picked a random point on
I've
Google
done this with
Maps
Florence. Yep. Like up on a
and
hill.
I was, yeah, that's
Yeah.
literally what I did. Why are we the same person? I literally like, I think it looked like, oh, that could be a cool little town. And I was
Yeah.
like, how do I get there? So then I
Yep.
had to go and like buy a ticket for the bus.
Right.
Obviously,
Yep.
they didn't speak English. And I
Yep.
was like, I don't speak Italian. And then being like trying to be like, I just want to go up there. And they were like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, but it just looks good.
I
And then
just
like
need to
getting a
see.
little bus
Hmm.
and then like sitting on top of a wall and getting some randomer to take a photo of me. Just me.
I
But
don't
it was
know.
those sorts of things where I'm like, I'm on my own. I'm just getting a public bus in the middle of Italy and like I'll be fine. Like I'll figure it out, you know? Does all help. It does also help that you have a phone, to be fair. Like I do think like life would be quite different, I think, if I didn't have the safety net of an iPhone.
Yeah.
But still, I don't really know why I did that, but those types of things stick in my head. Just like
No, I did the
key
exact same
moments of
thing. I
challenge.
was visiting my sister last year in
Yeah.
Florence, and I was like, Sophia, like we've been in Florence for like 2 days. Like we should literally just go to this random town on top of a hill. It looks cool, and it looks
Yeah.
like kind of a castle and a cool wall that you can sit on
It's
with it.
probably
And
exactly the
yeah,
same
I know it
place.
probably is. And it was, yep, exact same thing. And she was like, why are we doing this? And I was like, because it looks like it could be cool.
Because
Like
it's
we
well,
have to,
yeah.
yeah.
I think the thing that ties it all together was just a sense of like curiosity and like adventure. So when
Hmm.
I was on this like bikepacking trip the past few days, the whole concept was like, let's just try not to make too much of a plan and just like have a bit of like add a bit of risk into your life, like add a bit of adventure, like add a bit of unknown, because so much of like our lives, especially like these days, are just so known. It's like so predictable. Maybe not anymore with my current job setup, but I think we're just so used to routine that like going on a backpack trip, oh, let's plot the route like as close to when we can set off as possible. Or like
Hmm.
let's not check the weather. Or like let's not check the ferry times. Obviously that backfired several times, but like that was what made it exciting. And we
Right.
knew that it probably they probably would miss the ferry and then we'd have to figure it out. And like
Hmm.
forcing yourself to just figure stuff out and like be curious and go on adventures, like it's just exciting
It's so
to me.
fun.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that's what I live for is like
Yeah.
things going wrong
Yeah.
almost and like
Hmm.
figuring it out and like problem solving. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, that was my side
Yeah.
tangent.
No,
I
I
think it's all
agree.
about curiosity and adventure,
Hmm.
which maybe is like just a value that I hold that you hold, whereas maybe other people don't really care.
No, yeah, I just think like lower on
They
the
don't,
value list, you know?
yeah.
And like there's definitely values that I almost wish I probably held higher, you know?
Like
Of
what?
like, I don't know, of like I would love to have, I'm working on having like a stable community and house. I'm like, that would be
Yeah,
cool to have. And I know that like it's a piece of my life that I would love to lean into more because I do see
yeah.
value in it, but it's also not trumping the curiosity, which is really hard
Mm,
because then it's
tricky.
it's just those different pieces of you, but it's like, okay, the curiosity side is like always going to win a little bit of like, okay, in a way, if like there is a little bit more risk and like there is a bit more unknown, like I'm always going to choose that route. And there's
Yeah,
definitely times that like I kind of wish that like I was a little bit more of like, no, I'm gonna stay, you know? Or like, okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna lean into like what I
yeah,
already have or build that up. But I also think that that will just come
yeah,
like different seasons of life too.
yeah. So have you always been like that,
Oh my gosh,
choosing
yeah.
like the risk?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And like I even remember like being in high school and like junior high, like I would like stay awake on Google Maps. Like Google Maps is my favorite app on the face of the planet. And I would play this game called like Find a Random Island where I'd like find some like new random island that I hadn't found in the South Pacific. And then just become like
I love this
wildly
so
obsessed with
much.
it and then figure out like, okay, like how can I get there and like what can I do? And or like I was like obsessed with chili, like the country chili for so long.
Oh yeah.
Still haven't been, but I remember like
But you
I
know everything about it.
yeah,
You've
and then
been
like
to
it's like
every street on Google Maps.
yeah, pretty much. And I was like I've like planned out like so many different trips to Chile or like at least like in high school. Like
This
okay,
is
I
so
know that it's
great.
still all gonna come up, but like I do think that there's always been that curiosity and so I think like especially looking at like where I want my life and I think especially like work to be heading,
Yeah,
everything that I am doing and like trying to build feeds into that curiosity where it's like that's what lights me up.
yeah.
And if I can merge those, then like I'm always going to be excited. And I kind of joke too that like I'm just an easily excitable person where like if you can kind of like sell me on something, like I'm gonna be so excited about it. And so whether that's like a place or food or just like the storytelling behind it, or like I think like with travel, it's like you do kind of just like weave all of those different things together of like the people, the place, the
Yeah,
food, activity, and like I think especially too with like sports and movement, it's just like another one of those like really cool avenues that just
yeah,
feeds into that too.
yeah. It's always at the peak of curiosity
Yeah.
to like travel.
Oh,
It's like
definitely.
everything is new.
Yeah. And then sometimes you get a little bit burnt out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna get to that point after the Love Island series.
After the Love Island series. Yeah, what are like the upcoming things in the next month that are you looking forward to?
Um, hopefully I'm gonna get my new bike.
Oh, you haven't gotten it? Wait, you have one right behind you. Is that your
It's a
bike or is
different
that a
bike.
rental
It's
bike?
such a long story.
Okay.
Basically, I might get my bike tomorrow,
Okay.
and it will be a case of me picking it up and going straight to the airport
Ooh,
and having to drop this bike at its home on the other side of London before
got it.
doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't get the bike and I have to take this bike to Mallorca and then I have to fly back early in order to take this bike back to its home in time for an event that they need it for.
Oh,
Which is
bad
this
idea.
is why my brain has been like so chaotic recently because like
Yeah.
that was the situation and I hadn't
Yeah.
heard from people and I'm not going to find out till tomorrow morning. But then I also had to announce my partnership with Laka
Gotcha.
before we announce our group ride, which we need to announce like soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to announce my Laka partnership by getting my new bike. So I was like waiting, and then I was like, you know what? I need to just not create so many dependencies in my life.
Uh-huh.
This
That's
is the
the
thing. It's
issue
like
right
this
there.
depends on this, and this depends on
Uh-huh.
this, and this, and I can't make any of decisions, and I can't do anything because
Mm-hmm.
everything is dependent on this bike.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
need to remove dependencies,
I
and
don't
so
know that
I
there's a way to do that in this realm though.
also
Everything.
I did
Yeah.
fix it,
Okay.
kind of. I made a reel. I didn't announce the lacquer stuff with the reel getting my new bike. I made a reel yesterday, me going to my group ride wearing my lacquer stuff. Used
Gotcha.
the same script but used different footage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've sent that off to them now. So hopefully I can post that soon. And therefore I can then make the Mallorca content. So the thing is like if I don't announce lacquer, we can't announce our group ride, and then I can't start my Mallorca content, which needs to start on Thursday. So you see my life is just like this and then this and then this and this. And then I need to do an ad which needs to fit in with the Mallorca content, and therefore that needs to be submitted on Sunday. And so
Right.
like I have this plan that needs like perfectly executed in order for it to all work out, which
And it
I'm
kind
very
of
good at
depends on
doing.
like.
But when it relies on other people, that's when it all goes wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we were like, how are we getting to someone said, huh, we need to like sort the transfers out from the airport. This was yesterday. And then this guy was supposed to be doing it. And then he's like, oh shit, yeah. So he sorted it out. It was so expensive. I'm like, we can't
Really?
do this.
I feel
So
like
there's
those
five
like
of
can't
us.
be that bad.
They were so
Yeah.
because also because you're flying bike boxes, you've got to
Oh.
have like so much space. So this morning it's like, right, well, how are we gonna get from the airport tomorrow? Because we're arriving at like 9 p.m. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, right, guess I'll hire a van. So like today I'm like vans, Mallorca, like sorting that out. And then it's all just like so much to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which somehow I just become so busy even though I'm not working. But anyway, that was just me rambling. That was my internal
Mm-hmm.
monologue.
Wait, but then what's after
That was oh
Mallorca?
yeah, that was what was you literally
Yeah.
asked me what am I
Yeah.
looking for? Let's not going on about my little like logistics nightmare.
No, that's exactly what
Yeah,
my
so we've got
brain does.
Mallorca for like 10 days, maybe 8 days. I have to come back early, which is me and a bunch of my, I'd say mates. I don't know many of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Future mate.
Random people from the internet, future lovers,
Mm-hmm.
because we're
Yep.
doing a Love Island cycling series. And then after that, I'm coming back for a week. I'm going to do a cycling race. I'm going to sleep on my friend's airbed, I think. And then I'm hopefully gonna get a van. I've set my dad on the case. Like he's really
Okay.
trying now. He's got his brief
Good.
and he's on it. Hopefully I'll have a van which I can then drive back from London to Newcastle with my stuff and my bike around the 15th of June, and then I can go renovate it. And that's my escape out of London.
And then you're out of London, most likely.
Hopefully. Yeah. Until someone's like, oh, do you want to come to this event? I'm like, oh,
And you're like, oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, I will be there.
can I do styling remotely?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's what's happening in the next month.
the
Yeah.
conversation around like the identity shift into being a content creator. Like, how do you feel like you're navigating that? And I feel like we have talked about this a little bit before of like, it's
Uh,
kind of been like the slow progression of like you're doing content and then you're working, but now it's like full content creator. And like even introducing yourself at the beginning of this of like, hi, I'm Laura and I'm a content creator.
yeah. I think like I don't think I've really found it like challenging. I think I've had like two big like shifts like this in my life so far, like when I left med school and
Mm-hmm.
then now when I'm like content creator. I think probably for they were very different for very different reasons. But I think when I left med school, like I don't know, like I didn't have anything that I was necessarily like passionate about. And I think I was also like that had been the only thing that I'd known or like been good at for my
Mm-hmm.
entire life. That was like such a big part of my identity. And so that was like really hard because I was like, who am I? Like, what am I doing? If I'm not a doctor, like, what on earth am I? Like, I don't know. But then I think with content, I think partly because it's been like gradual, as you say, and I built it up. And also I've been like super passionate about it. I think I haven't found it that hard just because it has been gradual. And I think once I got over like the imposter syndrome of like thinking that I was a bad creator, which I'm sure I was, everyone starts out as a bad creator. But once you start getting the validation of like your videos do well, then you get more followers and people start reaching out to you asking to like work with you. That like very quickly goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just felt like a very natural transition to be I think I've always kind of called, I don't know, I've kind of called myself a content creator for a while, like even when I was still a consultant, because I'd sort of tapped out of consulting and like shifted towards being more like content. Um, but yeah, I think it's been very natural. I just think I was not expecting to be so like consumed by it, which maybe helps with the identity thing because like it is all
Yeah.
I do all day is think about like
Yeah.
content plan, this, that, this. And so it's like, well, what else do I do with my time? I don't do anything else with my time other than think about content, which I'm sure we'll have to settle down. But I'm very much at like the start of this leaving my job to do a different job that I think it's a bit of a necessary grind in a great way because I'm like really enjoying it. So um yeah, overall a good transition, I think.
Are there any things that you did, like, not even like at the beginning, but like maybe even like a reel that you put out that you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't, or like decision or like somebody that you reached out to that you were like, oh, like I wish I would have done that better, or even kind of like advice for yourself like 7 months ago? Like, I feel like I'm constantly learning and like we'll send
Yeah.
an email and then look back at it 3 weeks later and be like, oh, I should have written that differently.
Yeah. Oh, that's hard because like you just don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, looking back at my content, I'm like, well, obviously it didn't do well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like this, that, and this. And it's like, but you just don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think I couldn't have really done anything differently because you just like I was
You just
trying my
don't
best,
know. Yeah,
but
yeah.
you don't know. Um, yeah, I think it's all aligned very perfectly, to be honest. And like even when I did this, I basically started doing like an internal role at work last year, which was perfect because it gave me like the freedom and like more free time to do content, and like that worked out super well. And everything's just kind of manifested its way into my life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the sort of struggle of making cringy content and not good content. I feel like part of me feels like I wasted my time, I guess. Like I think I made like quite a bit of content when I first started that I spent hours and hours and hours on for it to just not do that well. And it feels like a waste of time because it doesn't really feel like it helped me towards the vision, but maybe it did. I don't know. It's a bit of a
Well, was it something that you were thinking about of like, okay, if I'm creating for Instagram, like I should be intentionally thinking about the way that I'm saying my hook and what I'm talking about in the middle and like kind of closing it out? Or was it more just like I think that's where it's like, no, it was like it was just fun. And so you're not thinking about
yeah.
that element of it.
I think it was more like if I knew how to tailor it to the platform, I would have. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it came very naturally to me at the start. Like I have friends who like started creating content and all of it like straight away they like get it. Like they just
Mm-hmm.
understand Instagram and maybe it's because they consume more, or they just like are better at I don't know, copying like what does well. But I think
Mm-hmm.
I struggled for so long to know like how to make content like that. And I almost just couldn't, like it wasn't in my skill set to be able to make content that did well. And so I kind of just made stuff that I felt was like purposeful or like had like a strong message. And I got like so many because it was very different content. Like it was just weird content. To look back at some of like
I know I'm gonna have to do a deep dive on this.
but like I mean I've archived quite a lot of them, but it was just very different content. I got loads of messages about how like different it was. But I'm like, well, it doesn't do well on Instagram because
Did you like the comments that were like, this is so different? And you're like, oh, I'm like hitting this like
oh
super specific niche.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it was more like poetry is what I describe. It was like journal entries. Like I did one, I was basically sitting like on the steps just over a year ago actually. So I was in Patagonia
Mm-hmm.
and I like was like, oh my god, this video is gonna do so well. And like it obviously didn't. But it was just me like sitting on sorry not steps but rocks in
Mm-hmm.
Patagonia reading from a journal, like basically saying that oh my god, what did I even say? I could probably remember the script if I like racked my brain hard enough. Oh, it was like the idea was like, what if like your 20s aren't for like following basically what everyone else is doing, but what if it's about like I don't know. I had some really cringy like phrases, but it was like oh I can't remember. Just like laugh like meeting strangers, like following the sunrises, like blah 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 blah. It was all very like poetic and deep and meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a lot of messages about it because people really related to it. But it's not type
Mm-hmm.
of would like do well on Instagram because it's not like hooky. It's not fast changing visuals. It's just me like kind of pouring my heart and my soul into this little like reel. Um, so yeah, I created stuff like that. And sometimes I did little like I did one that was me sleeping on top of like a mountain in Patagonia. And like the start of it was this is so beautiful. And then I did like a rewind to how I got there. And I can see why it did all right. It did better than my other reels, and I can see that now. But I would have, and obviously now I would have made it completely differently because I know how to
Mm-hmm.
make good content. But back then I wouldn't have known how.
Mm-hmm.
I just tried my best. So anyway, I'm rambling, but content has been a journey.
Well, and like, how do you feel too, just like being in kind of like the athlete influencer space as well? Because I always feel like that's kind of an interesting, like, space of like, you have a lot of people that maybe are coming from like being like a pro athlete and then like kind of have to start making content versus like, okay, I'm like a content creator first and foremost, but like the
Yeah.
athleticism is like the vessel for me to tell the stories.
Yeah. I think it is really interesting. And I've talked to a lot of people about this because I think people sometimes have like problems with
Hmm.
athletes and then they make content and they're like, no, sorry, the other way around, like people trying to be athletes when actually they're more just like influencers. And
Hmm.
it's almost like people get annoyed if you try to position yourself as a good athlete when they want to box you as like an influencer. And I think like I never really say that I'm that like good at my sport, which I am quite good at my sport, but I think my message isn't about that. It's more about like adventure and about like getting out of your comfort zone, about like doing things and just like having fun.
Hmm.
I don't want to be seen as like, here is my Strava stats, even though I do post that type of stuff. It's more like, here's my like ride that I did, and here's the pretty drawing of it, and like here's some of the cool photos from like the outdoors, and like go and have experiences and go ride your bike.
Hmm.
So I think I don't really find it difficult because I'm not trying to be an athlete, but I can see how it can be quite hard for people who are sort of on the brink of like being quite a good athlete, but then also a content creator, and like
Which one do you do? Or how do
so
you blend the two of them while being authentic? Yeah.
people do it
Yeah.
well. But sometimes I look at this is really bad, and like I have no shade against people whatsoever. But I was watching like a few reels the other day of just like some like the London like running people who are like really good athletes, like will come like run the elite field at like the marathons,
Hmm.
and it's just like videos of them running, and I'm like, but what do you do? Like that sounds really weird because obviously they're just like an athlete, and I kind of forget that being an athlete is a job. but it is like there are Olympians and that is their job. So I was like, wow, it's your job to just like do sports, and it really like blew my mind. And I just
Mm-hmm.
forget that like yeah, being an athlete is a job. I
No,
mean, when you
I've
like
had
being
that
an
realization
influencer is a
too.
job, it's like
Yeah,
what is job? Like it's all a bit like what are we all doing? I mean, I don't. I want to create content. Like I do love it. I do find that's probably interesting as well. Like I think quite a lot of athletes, and I've spoken to my friends about this, like some really good athletes want to train full time, but like they almost need to create content in order to like sustain that lifestyle.
definitely. Yeah.
Like you can't work a job if you're going to be training that much. You need like a flexible job at least. And like
Mm-hmm.
how do you lifestyle as you create content and they're sort of forced into it? Whereas I think for me, like coming from content, like I love content. Like I love more like this like video, like sorry, like cinematic stuff. And I love adventure. And like
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm doing my time. I don't want none of this feels like a chore. Maybe sometimes the emails, but like it still doesn't. Like I still feel like I'm doing something that I enjoy. Whereas I feel like maybe for some athletes, like it kind of is a bit of a chore, like work to create content because they don't actually love content. They
Mm-hmm.
just um so maybe that's why. I don't know. I don't know how I was going with that, but
No, I feel like um it's an interesting conversation too, because then also being an athlete and having the content side too elevates your value so much. And
yeah.
so if you're naturally not somebody that like leans into that, I think it can be really challenging, or it's just like not taking full advantage of like what you can do. But yeah, I think it's definitely it's a hard one, and like if you don't enjoy it, then like yeah, probably don't do it. But then it's like I don't know. Yeah. And I
And it's
think it's
hard.
always good too to kind of have like two things going on, right? Of like, even though you are a full-time athlete, like you kind of still need something else in your life that like balances it out to some extent, whether it's like a job or like family or something else where it's like, if you have a bad day on the bike, for example, like you can go back to whatever that other thing is so that it doesn't feel like your whole life is falling apart. Or like vice versa, of like if you're having a bad day in your job,
Yeah.
it's like then you can kind of balance it out and be like, I'm having a great day
Yeah.
on the bike. Yeah.
It's just bad that like going for a bike ride could be your job. It just
Yeah,
doesn't really fit in my
I know.
head.
It is pretty crazy.
How does that work? How
Yeah.
do I
Okay, I think we can wrap up the recording part of this. Do you have anything to leave people with today?
insure your bike? Or a 30 for 30 days free insurance.
That's that's a stellar way to end this.
Or get your bike nicked. It'll get you a few thousand followers.
Yeah,
Make
yeah,
sure it's
yeah,
before you.
yeah. Insure your bikes, everybody. I love it. Thank you so much for listening in today. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. And to stay tuned to all things Laura and Wander, follow Lauradoessports on Instagram or YouTube, and follow at Wander Women's Collective for all Wander updates, because we have a lot more exciting things coming up soon.